My name is Jason Martinsen, and I've been a mentor at Animation Mentor since 2006. I've worked on various films and games. If you go to jmartinsen.com, you can see a list of all the things I've worked on um, and check them out. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to animate a dynamic run cycle with an Animation Mentor rig, Darius. So the first thing, just like in a walk, is to get the keys. And these are some examples from a Richard Williams book. And yeah, it's basically the same thing with a bit more vitality, more lean, bigger arm swings. And the feet are off the ground both together. Whereas on a walk, there's always one foot on the ground. So you have the stride, the down, mid stride, passing position, the push off, and back to the stride. If you're going to do more stylized runs, these are some examples here from Preston Blair's book. But we're going with a dynamic basic run. So the first thing you want to always do is find some reference. I just found this clip online. These are some different strides, and I used kind of a combination of them. These are different paces. But I found it very helpful as a base to look at something like this. These are some runs I've done from other jobs I had with Ori and Jack. This is actually a test of Jack and Daxter. So obviously you can see runs can come in all shapes and forms, but today we're going to do a bit more of a realistic one. And runs are awesome. Like this is a clip from Claws with a great little run here, but runs are something that really add dynamic posing to your animation. You can see this run here. I was really pushed the arms, the timing of the arms kind of going forward and back, and the way the feet come up. It's beautiful work. So here we are in Maya. I'm using the Darius rig, and I have some reference here in the background of various runs I found on the internet. I brought in as an image plane. Now I'm not rotoscoping these references exactly. I'm just using them as inspiration because I don't. He doesn't have the same body type, and I don't want to necessarily make it like totally realistic run. I want to stylize it a bit. So yeah, all we have is 4 keys here. So I started with my stride key, and I just posed it out kind of based on the reference and pushed the poses a little bit. So this is the pose where he's kind of in the air at his high point. The feet are the most spread apart. He's bounding in the run. And one of the big differences between a run and a walk is that on a run, you have moments where both feet are off the ground, whereas in a walk, it's only one at a time, usually, unless it's some crazy walk. So again, to mirror this pose, there's a couple ways you can do it. One of them is to just the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your body control and paste it to the last frame. So whatever this pose is here, I just copy it to the last frame. So the first and the last is the same. And then to get the mirror of it, which is this middle pose, you can either copy the pose there, and this is an 18 frame run right now. I figured that would be a good amount of frames for a guy this size. So if you have an Animbot, there's this button where you just click it and it mirrors the pose, boop, for you. So now you can see it's completely mirrored. But there is other ways to do this. You can individually copy the body parts over, right? So if this pose is the same here, and now all you have to do is flip things, right? So you can either scale in the graph editor by -1 the curve, right? So it's 12. This is a rotation of 12. So you do, well, actually, you'd want to do it on the Z and the Y curve. So you do times, whoops, times equals -1. Sorry. You would do times equals -1. There you go. So now it flipped the curve in the values we need flipped. And then the same thing would be happening here on the Z and the Y curve. You would do times equals -1, and it flips that. Yeah, for the arms, I would just select them all, copy, and then select the other side and paste it, and it's mirrored. And then you select this one, copy it, select the other side again. And paste it. And now the arms are mirrored. By the way, I'm using this picker off screen. This is the Darius picker to select controls. Those are the arm controls I selected. And then the last would be the feet. So if I just copy this key here, copy it, select the other foot, paste it, and then this one, copy, select this one, paste. And now it's been manually flipped, right? So that was the slow and tedious way to mirror your pose, but it worked just as well. So then once you've done that, you can do your breakdown pose. So that's all this is now, is your key and breakdown. And the breakdown of the run is kind of the low point, and where the foot is in the middle, that's going through, and the other foot's at the passing position. The arms you can kind of figure out later, but they'll just be kind of swinging forward and back. Now it depends on the kind of run you have. There's different kinds of runs. You could have like a tight run up here. You can have like a big Mr. Incredible run where the arms are like doing these big swings, or kind of a more standard run. There's lots of different types of runs, and that's why you'd want to shoot reference or find reference for the type of run you'd like. Remember, a run like a walk is a controlled fall. Like the body weight to start a run, you need to actually, like if you're going to start sprinting, you need to really lean forward, right? And then you start to catch yourself with your feet and push off the ground. So you always want to have a forward angle, more so on a run than a walk. So yeah, once you get these 4 keys in, I mean, you can play your run and sort of feel it out, the timing of it, but it doesn't really work yet because there's no breakdowns. And then you can start working on your breakdowns. All right, so our next step is to do some breakdowns here. And one thing that you want to make sure is when you're doing your run, the main stride pose is usually fairly neutral as far as body position from the front. But when you get to your mid stride, that's when you want to have a little bit of translate X over, right? Because if I zero this out, that's where it is. Obviously it's down, but it's also over and a bit rotated. You know, if I zero out the rotation Z and the translate X here, he moves there. So it's not a big difference, but you could exaggerate it too. You could go, you know, really far over like that, right? And then on the opposite, I guess you need to tilt his head more too. So then on the breakdowns, if you wanted to do this, you'd have to start going over. And then on the way back up, you would be coming back to this. So this is a very exaggerated side-to-side run. But you get the idea. That's kind of the idea. On the mid stride is when you're pushing yourself over that. And this works for male and female. It's not like the walk. And it just makes it a nicer, gives it a nicer cadence from the front. So, so here we have our breakdowns on the run. And what we've added, because before we had this key pose and this key pose, is we've added the contact here, right? So the foot is kicking up, the body's coming down. It's not all the way at the low point yet, but it's coming down pretty low. And this foot is planted. And then you have your breakdown mid-stride, and then the push-off. And at this point on this particular run, this isn't always the case. Again, when you look at reference, you know, on this frame, this guy's foot, and I haven't exactly copied the timing of this reference verbatim, but this guy's foot is still on the ground. but I wanted to get a little bit more of a dynamic push off. So on the previous frame, on frame 6, which we don't have yet because we have frame 4, we don't have frame 5 or 6, and then we have frame 7, it will look something like it does in the reference. And then it's going to pop up into the air, you know, and kick through. And maybe I'll have it kick a little higher than it does here because you can see in this reference he goes quite high with the kick. But we'll see how it feels. At this point, I don't really need the reference anymore. The reference is nice to look at, and you can just get feels for things. The other thing that's happening in the reference that I haven't added to this run, which I can, is you notice that his hips shoot forward relative to the grid on the push-off. And then as he comes down to the mid-stride, it goes back. So essentially, there's like a pumping action forward and back, right? So as he pushes off, it goes forward. As he catches his weight, he goes back. And you're getting kind of this surge, which is a cool dynamic thing you can add into the run if you want. And I can show you what it looks like. The only downside to that is if you have like a camera panning with the character and they're like running and talking, is you won't be able to track the face because relative to the camera, it's going to be moving forward and back because he's not going at a consistent speed anymore. He's going at like a lurch, you know, faster, slower, faster, slower. And it's minor, but if you have a tracking character with a run, and that's often what you do in a CG movie, it's not ideal. It might look cool from a distance. If a character is running across a hill, you get a little speed variance. It might look cool for various options, but if a camera's tracking, it doesn't always work very good. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, so the push off is where you get this extreme straight, right? You want like this line of action coming. You could even go crazy if you were doing a major sprint and lean forward even more. You don't want to have the body doing like a lurch forward and back. It stays pretty consistent on a run usually. Like the angle of the body, you can see his angle of his body doesn't actually change that much. Very little. So if you do that, I think it takes away a lot of the energy and power of the run. It starts to make it feel a little bit wobbly. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the breakdowns. And then at this point, I am starting to incorporate some squash and stretch into the posing. So on the translation value of the chest, as he drops, I'm moving it up, right? And then as he hits the bottom, I'm compressing it down. This is like when it's low. And then as he comes back up, it starts to go up. And then as he drops again, it rises. So we can play with that mount. You can also do it in the head, you know, get a little bit of that kind of squash and stretch is really nice to add. And we're going to do it in the arms, but when we're splining, we're going to do it in the arms with the shoulders here. So you get like a down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, which is a really nice feel to have in the run. So that's it for the breakdowns. Like a run is pretty straightforward. I think it's easier than a walk. We're going to go on to splining now. All right. And here we have our first pass of the spline on Darius. So after I push spline, I went in and added some more poses. So for example, this was our breakdown pose that we had. So on this pose, I really wanted to extend that foot, not completely lock it out, but have it straight so you can feel it coming down to the ground. I mean, you could actually, if you wanted, have the heel touching and lower his body, but I think this works good. And then you have the impact. You can see the legs kicking up, the body starting to stretch, and then this was our other key. These are our two breakdowns. These are more or less just my in-betweens. And then you have your other breakdown here. This foot here is still contacted on the ground. You know, the foot roll is just enough so the leg is not locked out. It's pretty straight. And then poof, you get that push off. And if you wanted, you could kick this even farther back. So it kicks up a little faster. And then it goes through and repeats on the other side. For the chest squash and stretch, you can see I have this curve going through. And if I exaggerate this a lot, you can really see it happening, you know, and go extreme amounts. Boo, 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 boo. Right. So you just want to have a little bit of that to get this nice offset. And it's a translate up and down that's not the same time as his body. This is his body. and this is his chest, so it's more like this, right? The body's leading it, and then it's following. So you're getting like this cascading effect. Same with the head. The arms are swinging, and the way I animate the arms is I only have 2 keys, right? And you can pull out the tangent weight. I haven't done this yet, but if you free the tangent weight and you pull out this curve on both sides, this is the swing rotation value. You get a snappier timing on the arm swing, right? So instead of just even, it's swinging through and holding more, swinging through and holding more. So it's not going to be this as much as whoo, whoo, whoo. So you can really play with that. And the way I animate to the other side is I copy the one arm animation to the other. So easy way to do that is to get the feel of one arm is just to delete the keys on the other arm. You just kind of move it out of the way. So I'm just hiding that other arm. So now you can just see that one arm swing. Oh, still have some keys there. So the one arm is just hiding out of the way and the other arm is doing the arm swing. And you can really favor this if you want even more. And then for your forearm, checking the curve in the graph editor, you want to make sure that infinity is on so you can see how these curves line up on the cycle, right? Because if this is like this, you can see this doesn't play nice on this side and this side. You want these to really line up so this arm swing flows through in the curve. And again, you could really drag this if you wanted straight. And as it comes up, if you wanted to like bring this up to almost completely overlap the upper part of the arm, you could, right? So you can get Mr. Incredible kind of has a run like this. This is exaggerated, but this really like offset. Again, it's cascading rotations. The upper arm is driving the forearm. So the upper arm goes, and as the upper arm goes back, the forearm comes in, and as the upper arm goes to the back and starts to go forward, the forearm goes back. So you're getting this kind of pumping effect, right? But I think that's a little too much, so we're gonna undo all that and go with this amount. It's a little more natural. And then of course the same as with the hand. It's pretty straightforward. You just drag it a little bit through there, so it's not just not completely locked. And then as it swings through, it can drag a little this way, right? Just a little bit up. So the shoulder comes next. When it's forward, I like to bring it forward and up, right, like this direction. And then you make sure that that's the same key in the first and the last key, and the same thing on the back. You bring it back, back and up like this way. And then on the swing through, you can kind of drag this forward and down, so it goes down, forward. Same with this one. Right as it comes forward on the breakdown, you can have it kind of down and back. And so now the shoulder's really getting this like bouncy arc. And if you want to favor that, you could. You could get it up here. Take this key and move it there. Take this key, move it there. And you could just really favor that shoulder swing. Once you're happy with the arms, you just copy these keys and you select the other arm in the same order. So I selected from the shoulder down. I'm selecting from the shoulder down. And then you just paste it. You can see it's the same now. So he's doing this kind of silly run like he's warming up. And you just have to offset it. Make sure it cycles, and then you offset it however many frames is half your stride. So in this case, it's 9 frames. And now both arms are doing the exact same thing, right? So this is where your run starts to take shape. It feels pretty good to me, but this is where we can play with it. Like we could just leave it like this and see how it works running forward. If I unmute this curve, I have the forward run, and you can see feels pretty good. We're not getting 24 frames a second playback, but the feel of it is nice. His feet are not sliding, they're pushing off nicely, but I'm still not done with it. Let's play with it a bit more, show you what you can do. So we mute this again, and one thing we can do, we want to make this more dynamic, a little more stylized, is play with the poses of the legs a bit more. So you're really caricaturing the strides, right? But before I do that, I want to show you about the pump. So we can make an anim layer if we don't want to have this be destructive. And on top of this anim layer, we add the cog mover. And right now there's not really any keys on it. But remember what we said, as you come to the mid stride, it would move back, right? And as you push off, it would move forward. Right? So we can take this value and copy it over here. And take this value and copy it to these first two frames. And now what's happening is you're seeing his body pumping forward and back. Now this is just on the anim layer, right? This is not on the main mover, so we can blend this on and off if we want. And the other thing we can do is make sure that the legs are working with it, right? So clearly, this is not the right pose for this anymore. We want something like that. Just got to line up the feet so they go with the body's pump now. Now this is what happens on a real run sometimes. But imagine now if we're panning with him and he's like talking as you're running, you're getting this kind of like lurching forward and back. So you can imagine it sometimes being disturbing. But this can look really cool. So if you have a forward run in space, now as he's running, he's going slower, faster, slower, faster. So as you watch it, there's like this nice texture through it. So I think this is a great thing to do on a run from a distance, but I don't think it's a great thing to do if you're tight in or running on a pan. So we can just delete this layer. We don't want that. And that will go back to the normal run. And then the other thing we can do is play with the stylization of the push off of the feet. So if you really wanted to caricature this run, and I'm not saying we do, but we're going to play with it. You have your mid stride. The feet are coming to push off, and as they push off, you just pop this leg back more, which means quicker. It's going to be up in the air. And then you can hold this and not move it as much for a few frames. So even here, if you wanted, it could still be back there. So you're getting a lot of frames, like it's like slowing and speeding up time, like texture. A lot of frames where it's back there, and then it's going to kick forward really fast, boof, 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 right, into this front pose. So even on this frame, you could have it almost there. Just about there. And this frame getting closer. So you have a few frames where it moves quickly in the middle, and then you get it through. To the other side. Now I've only done this on one leg, so I'm going to copy this and paste it onto the other leg rather than having to redo it because it's quite a bit of a change. And now we can see you're getting a bit more of a stylized bound on the run, right? So that's a kind of cool trick to play. And the last thing, you can just go through and add a little bit of squash and stretch if you want on the head as he runs. So as he drops, it squashes in. And then as it stretches, as he comes down, it stretches up a little bit. So you're getting a nice little bit of face stretch. You could do a little bit in the brows if you wanted. These are just like subtle offsets, especially if you're going to have a close-up, right? So as he drops, you could raise the brows and the lids if you wanted a tiny bit. And then as he gets to the bottom, bring them down a little bit. And then just copy these. And then you're getting a little bit of a squash and stretch in the face on top of that. You could even do it on the whole head if you wanted to, but it's not necessary. So that's the demo. I hope you enjoyed it.